Today on our 2012 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD, we're going to be taking a look at and installing the B&W turnover ball underbed gooseneck trailer hitch with custom installation kit, part number BWGNRK1012. Here's what it looks like once it's installed on the vehicle. As you can see, we've got the gooseneck ball here, which is a 2 5/16 inch ball. It's a solid construction ball, so it's going to be really nice and heavy duty. And that, along with the overall design of this, helps to give it a 7,500 pound vertical load limit and a 30,000 pound max towing capacity. One of the best features about this is that you're able to flip the ball over and store it away. That way, it's a hitch when you need it and a level bed when you don't. It's got these spring-loaded safety chain U-bolts that come through from the bottom. So you just pull them up and hook your safety chains to them. When you're done and unhook your safety chains, they'll suck back down so that they're nice and level with the bed of your truck. As you can see, the body of the ball here has a square design and goes down into the square socket, and that helps make it easy to line up because there's no specific side that has a notch on it that you've got to slide down, but rather you just get the sides squared up. And you can even see the little cutouts there that are designed to help dirt fall through so that it doesn't collect in here. With the square design, what sets it apart from other gooseneck hitches is that this allows you to use the B&W companion fifth wheel adapter with it. It's nice and easy to use, and to get from the stored position to the usable position with the ball, you'll unlock it and then pull up on this convenient handle, flip the ball over, and re-engage the locking pin. Whenever you're done using it, you'll unlock it, take it out, flip the ball over, and re-engage your locking pin so that it's locked in this position. Now, let's show you how to install it. First thing we'll need to do to begin our installation is we'll need to measure out where we're going to have to cut our hole in the bed of the truck in order to get the head of the center section to come up through. So when we measure this, we'll measure according to the instructions, and we'll need to measure from the very end of the bed down there to approximately the center point in between the two wheel wells at the distance indicated in the instructions. And if you've got a bed liner in it, whether it be a spray-in or drop-in bed liner, you may need to compensate for the added thickness of it at the end of the bed. And then once you've got it marked, your distance from the end of the bed, you'll need to measure between the wheel wells and make sure that your distance there is centered. So now I can take a pilot bit and drill down through my mark here in the center of the bed. Now I'll take a hole saw, the size indicated in the instructions, and use it to cut out the hole that I'll need in the bed. Now I'm going to take a little bit of spray paint and just spray around that exposed edge to help prevent rust. I've gone ahead and removed the spare tire in order to give myself more room to work. Now we'll put a support strap up in order to help support the exhaust, because I'm going to have to let some of these hangers down to give myself enough room to make sure I can get everything installed. I'm going to have one exhaust hanger right back here at the back of the passenger side wheel. I'm going to put a little bit of spray lubricant on here just to help aid with removal, help it slide off a little bit easier. Then you can use a pry bar or some pliers if you don't have exhaust hanger tools in order to pry it off of there. And then just in front of the rear axle, there's one more hanger up here that we'll need to take down. And then there's one more a little bit further up. So now I can loosen my support strap a little bit and let the exhaust hang. Now between these two hat channels, I'm going to need to mark and trim off this heat shield so that I will be able to get all of my hardware up there to install the rails. Now, in order to install our cross rails, what we're going to have to do is we'll have to cut a notch over here in this bed flange so that we'll be able to slide them in. And with this one having this protective cover in here, this inner fender, we're going to need to cut that so we can get up to that bed flange. And where we're going to cut that is a couple inches in front of where this hat channel is. That's right back here. So I'm just going to cut an opening. That's a couple inches wide, right up here. I've marked this according to the instructions, so there's a triangle that we'll be cutting out of this bed flange. And you can cut that out. I'm going to use a pair of snips here, but you can also use a grinder or rotary tool if you'd like. Here we've got our front and rear cross rails. The rear cross rail is the solid one with the threaded holes in it, and the front cross rail is this 5/16 inch thick angle iron with the holes that are drilled in one flange of the front rail. We're going to install the front rail first, and when we install it, we want to make sure that the flange with the pre-drilled holes is going to face towards the rear of the truck. So slide it across. Once we've got it to where it's sitting on top of the other frame rail, we can move it forward a little bit on the truck. Now we can slide the rear cross member in, and you'll notice that the threaded holes are a little bit offset from center. They're a little bit closer to one edge than the other. When we install it, we'll need to rotate this so that that shorter edge is down, so that these holes are a little bit closer towards the bottom. Now this hole on the front rail, which is the second one in from the driver's side, is going to be difficult to put the bolt in place once the center section's in, because it's going to be directly above the fuel tank here. So what they give you is using one of the 1.5 inch long, 1/2 inch bolts. They also give you this little rubber O-ring that you can slide over it to help hold that bolt in place. So that way you don't have to fight with getting that bolt started in there, because it'll be held in place with that O-ring. Now for this rear cross rail, we're going to need to stand it up and get it flipped upright so that the bolts will be able to start in through our center section. And again, we need to make sure that that shorter distance between the hole and the edge is going down towards the bottom. So we can use an adjustable wrench, put it on there in order to flip it upright, because it will have some pressure against the bottom side of the bed. So it'll be a little difficult to do by hand. Now it's a good idea to grab a second set of hands to help install this and slide it up into position. Slide it up over the exhaust. And you want to make sure that your spring locking mechanism is towards the driver's side. And then you'll take that front rail and rotate it up so that that bolt will come through. You'll use one of those 1/2 inch bolts to align it. You'll push it through from the front, and then on the inside you'll take a split lock washer and then a 1/2 inch hex nut. Then we'll be able to get the hardware started in the other two locations along that front rail. Now we'll get the rear cross rail lined up. with the elongated holes that are drilled in the center section. And then from the inside, we'll take the longer 2-inch long 1/2-inch bolts, put on the split lock washer and flat washer, and begin threading it in. And then I'll install the other 3 into that rear cross rail. Now we can install our 5/8 bolts into our bolt guides so that we can get ready to put our side plates onto the truck. So these 5/8 bolts, once you get it down there, a lot of times you can just kind of work it through the rest of the way. You want to get the edges of this bolt, the little corners there, to sit in between those cutout corners that are on those tabs. Because that's going to help prevent that bolt from spinning and coming out when you put it into the frame rail. If you need to, because those tabs get smashed down a little bit sometimes when you run the bolt in there, you can just get a screwdriver and kind of pry those back up. Our 5/8 bolts are going to come from inside the frame and come out these 2 large holes here. So the one that's on the shorter bolt guide, we'll put it through this access hole right here and bring it out that front hole. And then the longer one, we'll put it in this access hole that's directly above the axle and push our bolt back towards the hole. Now I'll take my side plate and carefully put it up into position. On each one, we'll put 5/8 flat washer, followed by a split lock washer, and a 5/8 nut. Now we can install our hardware into the rails to secure them to the side plates. So we'll take one of our 1/2-inch bolts, install a split lock washer, followed by a flat washer, put it through the hole, and begin threading it into that rear cross rail. Then on the front one, take a 1/2-inch bolt, feed it in through the front cross rail, then into the center section. Then I'll install flat washer, followed by split lock washer, then a 1/2-inch nut. And we'll repeat that same process for the other side. Now we can begin using a 3/4 inch wrench and socket and tightening the hardware that attaches our center section to our cross rails. Now we'll tighten up our side plate bolts, starting with the 5/8 inch bolts. And then I'll tighten up the 1/2-inch bolts that secure the cross rails to our side plates. Now we want to make sure that we torque all of the center section bolts down to the specification listed in the instructions. Now I'll torque down all the bolts on our side plate. Now we can install our latch handle. So we'll feed the handle through the cutout hole there in our center section. Feed it out over the frame rail, the driver's side. We'll get the loop here lined up with the mounting point on the end of our pin. Then we can take our 5/16 inch carriage bolt that comes with the kit and feed it through so that it locks into that square hole. And then on the back side, we can take the flange nut, get that started. Then we'll use a 1/2 inch socket to tighten that down. Now because this one has these inner fenders, we'll need to trim this inner fender out so that we have good access to this handle and it can function without hitting that fender. And now, our handle can function properly. Now we can drill a pilot hole out to begin the holes for our safety chain U-bolts. And we'll do that same thing for the 2 holes for the U-bolt on the other side. Once I've got the pilot holes drilled out, I can step up drill bit sizes and drill until I've drilled them out to a 1/2 inch in order for those 1/2 inch U-bolts to come up through. Now with the holes drilled out, we can take our 1/2 inch U-bolts and put them down through. Now we'll install these conical springs to the underside of our safety chain U-bolts. And then we'll install 1/2 inch washer. Then we'll install a 1/2 inch nut. I'll take a 3/4 inch socket and tighten that. Then you want to tighten that up until the bottom of that U-bolt is about flush with that nut. And then we'll do that same thing for the U-bolt on the other side. Now we can begin reinstalling our exhaust. With the exhaust reinstalled, we can take our support strap off. For the flap that we cut on the inner fender of the passenger side in order to slide the rails through, so that it wasn't just flapping around in here, I drilled a couple holes and put zip ties through them just to help keep it secure and tied down. And you won't want to forget to reinstall your spare tire. That's going to complete our look at and installation of the B&W turnover ball underbed gooseneck trailer hitch with custom installation kit, part number BWGNRK1012 on our 2012 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD.
Click the link below to shop, learn more, or visit us at etrailer.com.